Hello and welcome back to EFD, where today we're looking at 10 howling managerial errors. 10. Jose Mourinho. After an abysmal pre-season, losing the Charity Shield to Arsenal and only having signed eventual flops Falcao and Begovic in the transfer window, Chelsea's title defence didn't look promising. On the opening day of the season, they faced Swansea at home, and things didn't get much better for the London side. After being 2-1 up, Belgian keeper Thibaut Courtois got himself sent off and gave Swansea a penalty, which they subsequently scored. Mourinho obviously was not best pleased with all this, and he saw his rage hit new heights as Hazard went down injured. Chelsea's physios John Fern and Eva Carneiro went to treat Hazard, but returned to a berating from Mourinho, where he criticised their decision, which left 9 men on the pitch. This outburst saw both physios drop from first-team duties and led to the departure of Eva, who took the matter to court for constructive dismissal as well as sex discrimination and harassment against Mourinho himself after she heard him call her a daughter of a whore in Portuguese. Christ. This had a profound effect on the team, and Mourinho was sacked in December. 9. Tony Adams. How to Ruin Your Reputation in 10 Seconds starring Tony Adams won't be in your cinemas anytime soon, but the trailer did the rounds on social media. The ex-Arsenal legend hasn't had the greatest time as a manager, and the news that Granada, who were fighting for relegation at the time, had enlisted Adams as their saviour definitely raised a few eyebrows. Although his managerial career hadn't gotten off to the best of starts, his talent as a defender was unquestionable, and a defensive-minded manager is exactly what Granada needed, as when he took over, they were second bottom of La Liga and had the worst goal difference of -45. But straight away, Tony made a tit of himself, as a video of his defensive training was leaked, which showed Adams performing a routine not too dissimilar to the hokey cokey. His methods obviously didn't work, and he didn't win a single game as Granada finished bottom. At least he now has a dance to rival the Macarena. 8. Gattuso. This is a quite harsh entry, but an error nonetheless. Gattuso, like Adams, was a legendary player with a great defensive mind who managed to get a club relegated in the 2016-17 season. Gattuso took over AC Pisa in 2015 in Serie C and took them straight to promotion, but unfortunately things took a turn after entering Serie B. Gattuso parted ways with the club after the promotion as things looked bleak, but made a U-turn and returned to the club, who hadn't even had a pre-season and had also conducted an incredibly poor transfer window. To the Italians' credit, he managed the best defensive record in the league, conceding an impressive 33 goals in 40 games, but it was at the other end the problems lay. A thin squad and lack of upfront talent, not to mention the club letting striker Umberto Giuseppe go on loan in January to relegation rivals Avellino, as well as being docked a total of 4 points for failing to pay income tax twice, saw the club slip straight back down. Gattuso tarnished his credibility and showed many clubs he hasn't quite got the offensive tactical awareness to be a top-flight manager, so much so that he took a step down to become an under-19s coach at Milan. 7. Pep Guardiola. When Pep Guardiola took over Bayern Munich, he had a treble-winning team and took with him possibly the best midfielder in the world, Thiago Alcantara. It looked almost certain that he was going to win the competition again with the German side. But when his side came up against old rival Real Madrid, things didn't go exactly to plan. His over-eagerness to win led him to overcomplicate his tactics. A 3-4-3 turned into a 4-2-3-1 and then became a 4-2-4, which led to players having no clue what they were meant to do come game time. Bayern lost 4-0, their heaviest ever defeat in European competition. Their awful set-piece defending was a gift to Madrid, who would go on to win the competition, and Pep took full responsibility for lack of team organisation, calling it the biggest f***up of his life. 6. David Platt. In 1998, Sampdoria was struggling. After success in the 80s and early 90s, the club slipped down the league and found themselves in a relegation battle. They were desperate, and with the threat of relegation looming, they opted to bend the rules and hire an unqualified coach to try and save them from the drop. They hired ex-Sampdoria player and England international David Platt, who had won the Coppa Italia and the Supercoppa Italia 4 years prior. Platt had only just finished playing for Arsenal and had no previous managerial experience, making his decision to take the job even stranger. It was a death sentence. They won none of the 6 games Platt was in charge of, and Sampdoria were relegated for the first time in 17 years, just 8 years after they won the league. 5. Malky Mackay. Malky Mackay was a very successful manager at Cardiff, as he took the Bluebirds to their first ever League Cup final, which they lost 3-2 on penalties to Liverpool. Then the following year he took them to the Premier League for the first time. Impressive for a young manager in just his second managerial job. The controversy came when the texts sent by Malky to various footballing staff were leaked. He managed to insult just about everyone with sexist, racist, homophobic and anti-Semitic jokes. Not only that, he even posted a racist meme and sent it to multiple members of the Cardiff City staff. Before this revelation, he looked set to join Crystal Palace and take another step up in his managerial career. But the public outcry saw Palace retract their interest and Mackay was out of a job for a year. He's now working as a performance director for the Scottish FA. A shame for a talented young manager who had the potential to do very good things. 4. Hristo Stoichkov. Stoichkov was an incredible player, a talented nimble forward who was called a genius by Johan Cruyff. But he was also dubbed the bad boy from Bulgaria for his actions on the pitch, like his 2-match ban for stamping on a referee's foot. Loved by his nation, he took the reins as Bulgaria manager just 5 years after his international retirement. But being a hothead, he managed to piss off the majority of the team for 3 whole years. He managed to push out 3 members of the team and failed to get them qualified for the 2006 World Cup in Germany. His failure to control his temper had significantly affected the morale of the team. Stoichkov retired as a manager at just 47, realising he wasn't cut out for it. Hopefully his stint as a coach has been quickly forgotten, and we can go back to remembering the amazing player he was. 3. Sam Allardyce. Big Sam is the only England manager with a 100% win record, that being because he was only in charge for 1 game. After England's failings under Roy Hodgson, fans were excited at the prospect of Allardyce taking over. A manager who knew how to get the team to dig deep and performed miracles at saving teams from relegation. But after 67 days, he was already out of the job after a monumental cock-up. Big Sam was secretly filmed spilling the beans about how to get around the rules on transfers and negotiating a deal worth $400k to represent a Far East firm, as well as insulting the man he had replaced, Roy Hodgson. It's safe to say Allardyce was quickly out of the job and with his credibility ruined. His one chance at managing England was over before it really began. 2. Jim Fallon. Now for possibly the worst manager on this list, Jim Fallon, who took over Dumbarton in 1995 and maintained possibly one of the worst records in footballing history. After Dumbarton's promotion to the Scottish First Division, then manager Murdo MacLeod left for Partick Thistle, and Jim Fallon took over, beginning one of the most brutal downward spirals that took 12 seasons to recover from. Fallon was relegated from the First Division, something that's to be somewhat expected for a newly promoted team. But then he managed to get them relegated again, taking Dumbarton from the First to the Third Division, while only being at the club for a year and 2 months. His 50 games in charge saw him win only 2, losing an insane 42 games, with a win ratio of 4, yes, just 4%. Safe to say, Jim has stayed well away from management since. 1. Fritz Korbach. Like Allardyce and keeping teams in the Premier League, Fritz Korbach was known for bringing teams into the Eredivisie. The German spent most of his career in the Netherlands and stayed there until his death in 2001. But it wasn't his managerial talent that got him into trouble, it was his mouth. While at Heerenveen, he called Ajax winger Brian Roy a putrid little and Romario that coffee bean of PSV. Safe to say people were outraged and Korbach came under immense scrutiny. His defence, straight out of Richard Key's book of excuses, was that it was football language, and obviously people didn't accept this. Now he's more remembered for his remarks in his managerial career, and rightly so. So those were our top 10 worst managerial errors. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. If you've got any suggestions, tell us in there as well. And if you enjoyed this, check out Stat Wars The Champions. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure who was on it, but it's probably amazing. Make sure you follow me on all these social medias, Zach Jellerb on everything, Instagram, Twitter. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.